Zoning Board, you are live and you are being recorded.
Okay, thank you, Michael and LTV. Good evening, everyone. And welcome to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for August 3rd, 2021. This evening, we'll start off. There are two canceled public hearings. I'll just read those. The first that is canceled is Jennifer King, and the location of this project is at 318th Street, Kingston Park, Section 1, map number 5499, Springs, East Hampton. And the second canceled public hearing is the applicant is Connie Dalem, D-A-H-L-E-M, at 145 Atlantic Avenue in Amagansett, and those will be heard at a future date. So we will move on to our schedule of public hearings. The first one we have, I will read in, is the applicant is Christine Murphy, and the lot size and location is 74,321 square feet at 257 East Lake Drive in Montauk, tax map number 300-13-1-13 and 19. Description is to replace in kind, like kind, a 2,235 square foot first floor, 1,022 square foot second floor residence on a parcel of land containing bluffs and tidal wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-4-20 of the town code, and two variances are required for this project. One variance of 18 feet from 255-4-40 bluff setbacks of the town code is required to construct the residence 32 feet from the bluff where 50 feet is required. One variance of 51 feet from 255-4-30 wetland setbacks of the town code to construct the residence 49 feet from wetlands where 100-foot setbacks is required, and any other relief necessary. This is in an A residence zone. The flood zone here is X, and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
On this one, what we have is a affidavit that it was, mailings went out on the 21st day of July and the postings were done on the 21st day of July. Paperwork appears to be in order.
Okay,
Put this in the-
thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Okay, this is in Montauk, and board member Johan, I believe, has this application. If you'll get what, please, Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Michael. We'll start with the first photos. Here's a photo of the posting on East Lake Drive alongside the mailbox, so we're adjacent to the driveway. Next. Here I'm looking. I'm looking north on East Lake Drive, just to give an idea of the road. Next. This house photo is missing with one south. Now I've walked inside the gate and I'm looking to the length of the property. I'm standing with my back to East Lake Drive. There's a spur of the driveway that you see goes off to the left. You'll see that goes to a garage. And off to the distance is the structure that's under discussion here. And you can get an idea of the depth of the lot. You'll see that in the survey as well. Next. This is a picture of a permitted and complete garage. This garage, pool, and pool house were out of jurisdiction, and so were not for our consideration. But I'm including some photos because it may enter into our thinking later on, possible future conversation we have about the disposition of this particular case. Next. This is a notice there just showing that there was a stop work order last November. At that point, all work halted, and you'll see in the future photos the current condition of the property. Next. Well, there was one there, we skipped there. Here's a pool, again, out of our jurisdiction, partially constructed. You can see that the area around there and the condition of the pool is that it still has some work to be done. Next. This is just an area behind there. This some shrubbery has been moved and it's being moved around. Next. This is an excavation adjacent to the pool. Again, I want to highlight this is all out of our jurisdiction, but it will enter into some of our discussion. And we see here there's been some trenching going on. And looking at the survey, we'll see that this is the location, future location for a pool house. with the pool that we've seen already in the garage, which is complete. Next. Now I've gone a little bit closer down to the structure. This is had been an existing structure, and a serious amount of work has been done on it. This is to the south of the property, and we see one portion of it. There's a wing that would have connected in between, which is not yet under construction. What we do see in the foreground here is some fencing that's protecting the septic system that's been installed. Next, some pictures of some covers showing you the approximate location. This is important, again, in future discussions to know where this has been located and how it relates to the building. Next. I'm just looking down in the section between one portion of the building, and you can see that as construction stopped, there's some sheathing in place. There's a lot of new material in place here, new framing material, but it was obviously right in the middle of construction, so we can see exactly where it had to halt. Next.
Hey, Barbie, could you just go back the last two really quickly? This one, and the one before that you showed, yeah, this one.
So again, we can see here that now to the east of the structure on the landward side, this IA system had been installed. And you can see how it relates to the building itself at this point.
On the left there, I just wanted to ask you on the left, pardon me, I got distracted earlier. What are we looking at right there under the green tarp? Which portion of that is that?
That's a portion of the
Main
building, yeah, the main house. And as I say, you're going to see a second portion that's off to the north. And then the connector between the two is at this point not framed.
Okay, that's what I wanted to check. Thank you, Ed.
Just turning here, as we came down the driveway, and on both sides, there's mature vegetation. There's very adequate edge cover between property, future property owners, either side, current property owners. And this is looking south. And you can see also in this photo, unfortunately, lost some photos in transition today that would have more completely showed you the protective fencing. But here you get an idea that it is in good condition. It is where it was expected to be, and that it runs for a portion of the property, not all the property. But that is what the applicant was asked to do at the time of careful planning on that. And so the fence, I had a couple of other photos, but you can take my word for it. It runs like this around the perimeter of the affected area. Next. Here we're standing. I've made my way towards the back of the building, and here's an important sort of view of understanding just how close we are to the bluff and Lake Montauk, Lake Montauk beyond towards the inlet. And pre-existing is this work that's been done with a previous house, the Belgian block work right below you, which leads to an entry into the basement, again pre-existing, and the pre-existing deck that was left remaining, although new work had begun, that we can see there. Again, it's important for here to make note and checking out surveys, just the juxtaposition of the building as it is now in its water side, close to the water. Next. Now I'm looking back at that structure from the same spot, and I see the new structure. This is the part that's largely in contention. There's been notes in the TAM about what has taken place here and whether it was done in the proper order, not proper order, proper technique. All of that is to be discussed. And you can see, you're right, John, particularly that secondary building, you had seen it from the other side. You see how the two structures relate to each other here. And again, there would have been a connector between the two. At this point, the construction level is, so tarps have been put to cover the open building. This is a sheet structure, a good deal of framing, but not all framing on both sides is done. A lot of it, all of it appears to be new, and it would be done, I would say, in the proper and good condition for what was done, but that's not actually the question here. Next. This property has a dock. I didn't mention that starting this property was under consideration, and a decision was rendered by the board previously, so many of the board members here will remember this. This is a significant dock, one of only, there's only a couple like this on the lake. I was impressed with its size. Again, it's permitted and allowed, but I wanted to show again the relationship that the property has. You can see that the shrubbery that's very close to the edge of where the drop off occurs down to the lake. And then there's an entry, of course, down into the dock area itself. Next. Here I am looking across this pre-existing deck with the tarped building to my left. And I'm looking out the other direction. I'm looking south off the distance towards South Lake, out towards Ditch Plains, and off of the ocean in the distance. But in front of there, of course, is the lake. So this is a very interesting and attractive piece of property that sits right on the lake. And the position of the house now has been described by the chair to require variances for being as close as it is to the water. I think that's all I have, Michael. Yeah. I would just like to add that I lost a couple of photos in the transition, but the other ones that I added were primarily to show the condition of the mature vegetation of this area.
Okay, thank you for that field report. Board members, any questions for Ed? No? Okay, first we'll hear from the applicant or the applicant's agents. Good evening, Andy.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Now, this is quite a streak. This is my second least favorite application, and I'm doing it a week after my first most least favorite application. So, although tonight nobody hit my car in the parking lot on my way here, so that's better. I'm here tonight representing TJ and Christine Murphy, who are the owners of the property at 257 East Lake. The Murphy family have been residents of Montauk for 26 or 25 years. I'm sure TJ can explain that to you. He is here with me tonight if you have any questions. Christine, who had a baby girl about 2 weeks ago, I believe, could not attend. She's attending to their third daughter. I can attest that when I met her on the property, we kind of walked around. I was a little concerned she was pregnant at that time, and the site's kind of a it was stopped in midstream, so I was a little worried about her walking around. But as it turned out, everybody is very healthy and happy right now. As I mentioned, the Murphys are not new to our community, not that longevity should influence the board, but I mean that by way of, they're familiar with the community and how the community operates. They waited a long time to purchase this house on East Lake, and they purchased it in 2017. After purchase it, they held the house long enough to develop a list of improvements that they wanted to make. The accessory structures, as Ed correctly pointed out, are all designed to be outside of NRSP jurisdiction. However, the existing house was located 32 feet from the bluff along the western side of the property. Any additions required relief from the town code, which was in fact granted by this board, along with mitigation measures, including revegetation along the bluff face and the installation of the IA system that you see in the photos Ed took. The sanitary system was installed after a building permit was issued last year. However, a stop work order was issued in November 28th of last year. Essentially, the stop work order was issued because they had exceeded the approved scope of the construction proposed. The demolition of a larger percentage of the structure was undertaken, which would require this board's approval for a reconstruction, essentially. Frankly, there's no one that wanted this to happen, not the applicant, clearly not the zoning board of the town, or Joel, who handled the initial permitting. The owner hired a local contractor who commenced work, and apparently without regard to the approved scope, and was somewhat insensitive to the limitations of the town code. So the owners were hoping to welcome their new child into the completed construction, but at this point in our lives, not sitting here tonight. The contractor was ultimately terminated for a failure to abide by the agreed upon protocol established by the architect. That being said, this house isn't raised per se. As Ed's photos correctly showed, the foundation, first floor deck, basically, the foundation is untouched. The first floor framing and subfloor remain on the property, except with the exception of one small location. I wasn't able to access the interior of the structure. Probably a good idea. It's all locked up. But there was a proposed atrium that they did remove some of the subfloor. This is a reconstruction under our town code, but it is far from a redevelopment, which is, in the TAM discuss a redevelopment. To effectively redevelop this property would require enormous amounts of heavy machinery, excavators, excavation, filling and grading work, and I don't think the the level of environmental protection would be benefited at all by increasing the scope of construction to include this in the footprint of the residents along the lake, as Ed's photos pointed out. I mean, this is a little more complex than it sounds. I don't want to minimize this to a simple contractor error that's easy to trace back to just an overzealous demolition team. There's a lot going on with these construction plans. Even looking at the pictures attached to the TAM of the original structure, you had a house that is 2x4 framing, nearly equal, nearly floor to ceiling windows and sliding glass doors under a very low roof line that's about 8 feet. That was proposed to be lifted to 12 feet. As a matter of fact, the photos show the approved roof line that was installed. The walls to the north and south on the approved elevations were to remain. And there is a narrative that was submitted by Martin Sosa, who's the project architect, that I'd ask you to review. It kind of reviews in detail what was supposed to happen. But not only did you have that, but you couple it with a HERS rating requirement that required them to defer the interior dimensions of a 2x4 to 2x6 for insulation purposes. I can see where this adds up to a determination of expediency rather than to alter and rebuild portions of the existing walls in a manner consistent with the original permitting. It's also worth noting that the original project was issued variances for additions, decking and patio, walkways, etc. What were not issued at that time were variances for the reconstruction of the existing residence. As the board is aware, the variance standards provide to be eligible for the grant of a variance, the applicant must demonstrate that the benefit to the applicant outweighs the detriment to the general health, welfare, and safety of the community. It's a balancing act that this board has to perform, and there are a lot of factors relevant to this balancing act. The applicant must also demonstrate the variance requested is in fact the minimum variance necessary and adequate to provide relief to the applicant while still protecting the character of the community. In reality, the difference between the identical structure approved by the zoning board and the structure that we are seeking approval for tonight is a certain number, I don't know the exact number of framing members that were to be left, that are now new that were supposed to be original framing members.
The only problem I have with that, Andy, is the balancing act by the board, which took place in 2019. It shouldn't be taking place now.
Well,
We examined it in 2019, and I remember very carefully this is a sensitive piece of property.
oh, it's certainly a sensitive piece of property.
But we shouldn't be asked to look at it as a balancing act now.
Well, I think you do, because the plans that were submitted, if you really understood the extent of the renovation work, a lot of what has gone on there is consistent with what this board approved originally. There was some work that was not covered under those original permits. That's what happened. I'm not trying to minimize this at all.
Right.
I just want to say in reality, that's what happened. There was more framing demolished than was allowed. The structure approved by the board and in 2019 and what we're proposing today are literally identical. The character of the community argument is identical under either scenario. I suppose the hardest issue for the board is one of the factors is this a self-created hardship. I do want to understand that everybody wants to hold an owner responsible for all acts or omissions on a construction site. By not being present and supervising construction or hiring the wrong contractor, not understanding the extent of what they were supposed to do, he takes ultimate responsibility. However, my practice is we all hire people to handle certain aspects of our life, whether a landscaper, fuel companies, etc. And to a certain extent, we're all affected by the decisions of what we've done before. This is a terrible result for Christine and TJ. They've already lost 2 summers on the property, and it was clearly not their intention. There is a huge benefit to the applicants here, and the board found the same identical structure provided no detriment to the general health, welfare, and safety of the community, and included mitigation that would qualify as promoting the public interest and adequately preserving the bluff and wetlands located within jurisdiction. That's pretty much a direct quote from the board's original application that was approved. The board made other findings in the determination that the proposed use could be introduced without undue disturbance or disruption to important natural features. Proposed use was compatible with the character of the neighborhood, etc. We're asking approval for the exact same project with one serious addition. We're asking the board for permission to reconstruct the structure and to achieve the same standard to qualify for an RSP, as well as the grant of the requested variances. I do want to point out once again that the disturbance demolition of the existing structure, as well as the original structure excavation and grading required to redevelop the house, would be a very vastly more impactful project to the natural features. I'm also aware of at least 2 letters that were submitted to the board. One of those is from a very close friend of mine. I can't disagree with the sentiments they express. Obeying the rules and respecting them are key to our community. And that includes building and zoning laws that were adopted to protect both our community and the environment that we live in. No one should get a free pass. I do, however, disagree with the conclusion that this application doesn't deserve the approvals they are requesting tonight because of the facts, solely the facts. This isn't a cavalier landowner who ignored building codes to gain some additional benefit that I can't really fathom what that would be. At best, he would get exactly what the board approved initially, and neither letter acknowledges the result. Furthermore, the actual plans approved on the resident show this is not quite as simple as a tear down and rebuild a bigger house. There were areas of the plan clearly within the approval that modified roof lines, removed essential entire walls consisting of nothing but sliding glass doors with little or no structural components that had to be raised by 4 feet under the approved plans, and other important details that render this approval of this project equitable under the circumstances and standards appropriate for this application. The sanitary installation has been completed at substantial cost in the approved location. Requiring this application to demolish the existing foundations, original framing, abandon and remove the sanitary system, and construct it in a new location and complete another year or 2 of permitting isn't just punitive, it's inconsistent with the standards that would withstand review. I don't like these applications at all. However, equitable treatment does not deserve punishment in this particular case based on an analysis of the facts. This applicant has not achieved any potential benefit by delaying his occupation of the house, and at most can just hope that this board will allow him to continue exactly what was approved initially, although it'll be several years later. That's pretty much all I had, and I'm available for any questions. Just so you know, I also have Joel here, who's probably more familiar with the actual matter.
Okay, I have a few comments. So Andy, you know as well as anyone that this board, if this had come in to be a tear down a house and leave the existing footprint because it's non-conforming, this board would not go along with that. This board typically would, relocate the house, would move it back. As Roy said, this was a tricky application when it first came in. It's very clear that when this board looked at this application, the intent was, excuse me, to leave that house, what you see shaded, and it's apparent that the new additions were meeting, I believe they came very close to meeting the 100-foot wetland setback, I believe. Whereas the rest of the house, pretty much all that we see in gray shade there, did not meet those setbacks. So, and that all made sense for the initial application. This board did not heed to Michael Delalio's, the planning department's suggestion that the septic system, the new septic system, should be pushed back as far as possible. That was unfortunate. We should have heeded to that suggestion for reasons that he stated back then about other changes that may occur in the future. So what I'm getting at is what we have here basically is a completely reconstructed house. Granted, the foundation has been left. Those are some concrete walls. Otherwise, and a floor joist. What this board did not go back and scrutinize. I went through the old file today and I've gone through the new file. And this board did not go back and scrutinize the existing plans. There were only 2 sheets. It was very thin. It was like elevations shown. It was very thin what was submitted. And that was fine because we were just adding a little bit onto the back of the house. Now, when we look at what we have before us and we look at the photos, unfortunately, we only had 1 or 2, but of the existing house that was not to be touched, besides some of the changes that were called out, it's apparent that the intent was always to build this house and basically ignore what's there besides the footprint, because the brake line, the headers, everything was coming out. And you submitted a very thin, I'm not blaming anyone, I'm not pointing fingers here to anyone in particular, but what was submitted in the initial application was very thin. What was submitted now is not very thin, and I've gone over these drawings and I've read the architect's letters and all the correspondences. And then when you go to look at the revised demo plan since that application, In architectural graphic standards, as Roy and many of the board members know, when you have a solid line, that would be a wall to remain. When you have a dashed line, that would be a wall to be removed in a demolition plan. And I'm sure you see that, Andy and Joel. So here, basically, every wall has been dashed out, and the notes are very specific. I have it on the computer here, at Roy's computer. It's very clear that in the architect's letter, he talks about our intent was to have the 2x4 walls packed out and sistered with 2x6s and this and that, which all makes sense. That's what people do. And as Roy knows, there are other methods that you can do without even by packing out and insulating the walls in other ways. But nonetheless, on the architect's plans, on the revised, and you talk about firing this contractor, it looks to me like this contractor did exactly what was meant to do. It says, take out these walls to be removed down to the first floor deck. It says headers to be removed. It says 2x6s to be done, go around all the notes. It talks about roofs being removed. It's basically a reconstruction. If I were a builder and I saw these plans, that's what it looks to me, that's what the builder did.
So what I want to bring up too, and what John's bringing up is the date of the drawings that are submitted and dated and labeled ZBA submission. The ZBA hearing took place in September of 2019. The ZBA submission was dated 5/9/2019. What's in our file now is the amended demolition plan 11/23/2020,
Right.
which is over a year after the hearing took place. So this demolition plan is much more refined, and it's basically calling for this entire house to be taken.
I believe that is the plan that was developed after the stop work order.
It's
But-
dated.
Stop work order was issued in November 28th of 2020. So that plan would correspond to that date, right? I
But
forget.
there's a for construction plan too that
There's a-
superseded the
It goes back to
ZBA.
July, right.
Right.
So the point is here, it was clearly intended that my point is with the initial application, this board was looking at that just graphically. You see, okay, we're putting some small additions. Isn't that nice? We're putting an IA system in, we're putting a swimming pool, and we're gonna do that, and we're gonna push it back and be out of jurisdiction. That's what this board approved, right? And now you've got a completely new house being constructed on the footprint. And if we went around the town to the thousands of people who have non-conforming houses in non-conforming locations, and there are so many of them who would love to take their house down and keep that foundation on the bluff for 50 feet or 30 feet from the bluff. And that's what this board is here for. That's what we're here to protect. So I'm just throwing it out to you, that letting you all know, I see what's going on here. I'm not pointing fingers, but I know what happened here. It's very clear that what we approved back then is not what's going on now. And your architect
The
letter that makes no sense
the
whatsoever.
approved plans was 5/8/2019.
And
The demolition plan that has been submitted for this hearing shows there's a design development, 8/31/20, 9/11 design development, construction set 9/21/20, and then revised construction sets both 10/14/20 and 11/1/20. But what's before us is a much more,
And I know, Joe, what you're going to say. You're going to say back, because I looked at the previous plans, okay? A lot of this stuff was in the previous plans, but this board was looking at the additions to the back of the house. You had no drawings of the existing conditions, Typically, when you go for a permit, I honestly haven't seen the building permit ones, but typically, as you all know, you have existing conditions. Here's what the house looks like, Ms. Building Inspector, whoever it is. Here's what we propose to do. There was none of that. It was very thin, and typically I'm looking at that on the snippet of that. But you know what? This was an addition to the back, the landward side of the house. You know, we focused on the environmental issues, and now you come back and this is what you have. So just know that we know that there are thousands of other people in this town who would like to do what was done here, and this board would typically say, if you're going down to the foundation, you have to put in a new foundation and build your house further back from the wetlands. So you know that's how.
Yeah, this is from the original
Those
ZBA.
same plans appear in your building department or in your zoning board.
So why was it presented and that wasn't anything that we were
19?
adding?
No, if you, this is from Michael.
So you should probably get sworn in.
Sorry.
No, I said, but Joe, what I'm saying, I saw those plans today, but this board was focusing on where it said existing, that you were adding on to the existing house.
Yeah, I just,
There's nothing, go ahead.
the plans state, remove existing exterior walls, windows, doors, down to first floor framing,
Can you show
not
us
down
that?
to decking.
Is that the 5/8?
This is I'm on sheet A101 dated 5/8/2019. You had said, Mr.
Oh, zoom in, that's why I missed.
You said decking, not, it says down to 2x4 framing.
And this is stamped ZBA received.
These are the plans that were on file in the first application.
So if you had come to this board and said, hey, guess what, guys, we're gonna raise this house down to the foundation. And you talk about you're gonna leave the decking, I'm sure next year the decking will be fixed, but anyway, if you came and said to us in 2019, guys, we're gonna strip this house down to the foundation, replace all the exterior walls, and perhaps those plans were on file and this board overlooked portions of the specifics, but Andy, we were looking at additions landward to the existing house. Okay, and the survey says existing single-story house. Now that single-story, the top plates above the header are about 4 feet higher than what was existing. So,
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say for the record, neither Joel, myself, nor TJ had any intention to come to the board and mislead the board. Frankly, I wasn't even involved in the prior application. However, those plans are part of the zoning board's file. So this is sort of like accident reconstruction after the accident happened. So
So I want you, Joel, I want to point out the major difference between these two sets of plans. On a demolition plan, what is meant to be demolished is denoted by a dotted line. And what is meant to be remain is a solid wall line. If you go to the new plans, there's not a solid line on the plans. The entire house is being demolished. There is not one solid wall on those plans.
and it was not, I think the point here is the original application was for additions to the back of the house and renovating this house, not stripping it down to the foundation. Oh, we would have had you move that foundation back. We all know that. And
Understand.
that's my point.
And I understand why there's not a solid line on the new plans, because the new plans are showing what is going on right now. The old,
Doesn't make sense.
Basically,
I'll go
everything is through it in the
again.
demo plan, everything was intended to pretty much come down.
no, if you look at the demo plan from the approved plans,
I'm looking at the demo plan that the builder had when they
He's got
started
every
doing it.
wall, he's got every wall dotted, and he's got notation says remove portion of existing 2x4 wall down to first floor.
Down
But
to
the
first-
wall is
down-
dotted, so from a contractor's
To
point of
first
view.
floor framing,
it's to
that
be
means the
removed.
deck, that means the deck, right down to the
Down to your
second floor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, this was not
Every-
clear.
Every wall is not past tense, like removed. It's removed.
are you looking at the plans that we submitted as the new application?
Yes, we are.
Yes, and that's the difference between the plans that we're submitting for the new
When you
application.
talk about the builder who stripped that.
Board has the approved. These are the ones,
From 2019?
he should have 2019, those are the ones you just handed him.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
yes.
No, and it says down to 2x4.
So this was basically in
So
English, it's like
this,
a bait
you're
and
asking
switch.
for this set of plans to be approved now? Is that what you're saying?
The set, you just, this set of plans right here is what was approved by the ZBA. And
That's correct, I understand that.
and the plans that we submitted now are showing exactly what happened and what needs to be improved.
Do you have,
Right, so
do you have a
even-
construction set dated
Right, so,
9/21/20?
right, so you show walls, let me just say that, Chad in here. So in this plan, it's showing walls not to be removed. That kept the corners, could you zoom back on that? Oh, we have it, where's your 19, let me see this.
Well, this is the plan, those are the plans that were submitted. The
In
approved plan, no,
2019.
these are the new plans.
No, I have those. I want to see those, but my point is this, I can see them on the screen here too. Joel, the point is this, this was not an earnest application where we have, as I keep saying, probably 1,000 other non-conforming houses on Fox where people would love the opportunity to keep their footprint, raise their house down to the foundation, which you've done, build a completely different house, which you've done. And when you first came to us, As I've said, I'm repeating myself. There were no existing drawings. There was nothing. There was just simply like quick elevations. We get those all the time. You know, you're only adding on to the back of the house. So we weren't scrutinizing everything like that. It was not, forget it, the word is not coming to me, but it was not an earnest, it was not a clear application what happened here. If you went to, and the builder who got these plans, or the ones that you're coming for did what they did, that's your own concern. But no matter what, you had intended to rebuild a new house, because when I go back and look at the photos of the existing house, as I did today, and what of your simple 11 by 17 elevations that came in, the plate height isn't the same at all. It's like 4 feet higher.
Yeah.
And you were trying to bluff, I'm not saying you, I mean, this board was bluffed.
The king.
I'm sorry?
The kingly you, not me. Like my father would say, we have to mow the lawn. I knew I was with, but I wasn't even part of that.
I'm not blaming you. I'm saying whatever was the application.
Okay, well,
Just so you know that that's how this is coming off. And our concern are the hundreds and hundreds of houses in similar situations.
I did want to provide, one distinction is if this house were FEMA non-compliant, we wouldn't be having this
You would have
discussion.
picked it up and moved it back. That's what we would
Well,
have.
FEMA would say that you can't do this, and that upper limit would have become you have to render the house FEMA compliant. So, that's one distinction when you say there's thousands of
If we
people.
did that, we would have moved the house back.
A lot of people in those floodplains don't have even the luxury of being able to reconstruct their existing house with a permit from this board. You don't qualify.
I understand that.
And I did want to go over briefly, I remember the first time we had an application that was approved as additions. It was a complete demolition of the house. It was on Treasure Island Drive. And I drove there with the time, it was Don Shark, he was the principal building instructor. That was the first time we saw this type of an application. In that case, I remember going to the site and there was literally about a 6 or 8 foot piece of 2x4 held up by another 2x4 in a corner of the property. You remember this one? And that was a complete, that house ultimately, I think that he sued the town and actually won, is my recollection. And the zoning board was directed to issue the permit with conditions, et cetera. But that one had no foundation, or whatever foundation was there was completely gone. He realized that.
Okay, so let's get back to this one though.
Well, the intent here was not the same, and the benefit that's being acquired here is not the same. I don't think every applicant sees an incredible benefit in building a new house. Maybe the contractors do, but I don't think TJ realized the benefit. I don't think Christine realizes the benefit. I can't speak to what the architect's plans were intending. The architect is not here. If you'd like, I can have him, submit something to the board. But clearly the three of us did not intend to mislead the board in any fashion.
Can we just, because I'm bothered by the drawing dates and stuff like that. So we have to draw a timeline because to get this clear. I think, let me just ask you, are you saying the drawings that are submitted with this hearing now are a result of tearing the house, of the stop work order? So, in other words, what was the contract? I want to see what was the plans the contractor was working with?
Exactly.
I'd
I
have
would like to
to
see.
get the plans from the building board. Essentially,
Yes.
when the application was submitted, you haven't sworn me in just yet. I don't know if you have to still swear me in.
Oh, yeah, I haven't, I'm sorry, I will show. And then I have a comment after I swear you in.
Sworn,
Joel, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Great, let me just make a comment and then I'll let you answer a few things. So just so you know, what this board is going to want to see is the set of plans that were submitted to the building department, the approved plans from the building department. It would be helpful to see any scope of work that went along with that to the contractor. The contractor many times, we all know what scope of work is. And I'm looking at the ZBA plans here, and you are correct. All of the walls that we approved, so we did go through these, all of the walls that we approved were in kind, and you simply say remove existing exterior wall and windows, wall, and you say windows and doors to be replaced. Then there's one other note in one section that says that bring it down to the floor framing. And then there are So I want to see what we approved and what the building department approved. And nonetheless, if they end up being the same, my point is still this. This board in 2019 approved 2 little additions to the back of the house, and the mitigation was an IA system.
The one,
And now this is a complete reconstruction right here.
with regards to the plans that are on file from the previous ZBA approval, determination, and the plans that are on file now, it was prudent for us to submit a set of plans that show what we're proposing now. Essentially, there's no change in the plans that were submitted in the ZBA file in 2019 that are in the plans that you have submitted to this existing application, except for sheet A101. It says walls to be removed down to decking, first floor decking.
No,
So
I'm looking at, I am looking at A101.
So there's no real change to everything is the same in the plans that was approved in 2019 and it is in these plans in 2021.
6 walls now.
Everything is the same except for sheet A101, because now we're proposing to remove the 2x4 walls have been removed, and they're proposed to be removed and replaced with 2x6 walls.
And A300, the elevations, it's a completely different elevation at the water side than the existing house.
It shouldn't.
And the break lines are higher. See if I have.
This is the, correct? Wait, this is the,
Problem is there were no existing plans, so this board did not have those on a plan. But if you would come to us, and of course, Joe, but just, and I'll let you go on. If you would all come to us and said, hey, guys, we're gonna raise this house down to the foundation in 2019, we would have said, sorry, we're gonna want you to move that foundation back.
I'm just taking a quick look at the A300 that was submitted for the ZBA application, the A300 that was submitted now, and they're exactly the same
But there's no drawings of the existing house to compare.
for elevations. They were never,
In cross section.
I've never heard of them ever being requested for a zoning board application.
The roof line has gotten quite a bit higher, I believe, than what we're looking at in that photo.
And that was in the proposed plans. But this was never,
It was an existing house, in the proposed survey, you were saying existing single-story house to existing to remain, and you rebuilt the whole house. Okay, I'm not repeating, but I'm done. Go ahead. Yeah, let's do that. Thank you. Joel, I think you can take a break and we're going to hear from the planning department next, and then we'll come back and give you another close.
So I guess we can speak there. When is it the best time?
Maybe the best time after the planning department.
Now that everyone's warmed up.
Okay, we'll let you're the owner. Go ahead. I'll let you, because we do. Go ahead. Michael, thank you.
You have to come in and be
And then-
sworn in.
And unless you're an attorney, I'll swear you in, please.
I'm sorry.
Okay, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Go ahead. Good evening.
Good evening. First, let me just say, I apologize. Let me give you a little history about myself. I'm 35 years old. My family bought a house in Montauk in 1995. I inherited that house when my mother passed away in 2005, and I lived there with my wife until we had our first daughter. That was at that point when we began shopping the market to purchase this house. When she was pregnant with our second daughter, we needed more space. Now, a little background on me. I own a family-owned business called Baldor Specialty Foods. We became present in the community during the COVID pandemic. I'm making a lot of home deliveries in April to people in the community, houses who need food like that. I still run and operate that business since 2013 when my father passed away. Now, there's no excuse for negligence. When I began this project with my family, I was 33 years old. And first, let me acknowledge the reason I planted roots in Montauk and will remain in Montauk for the next 50 years, hopefully in this house, is because I love the work you guys do. You balance preserving the community with taking opportunities and growing it as well. So I do respect the purpose of this work, and I never intended or wanted to be here. Our journey
was to evaluate the property when we bought it. And as we were looking at what we had bought, 4 bedrooms, excuse me, it was an old house, but we loved it. We loved every inch of it. And we really debated, do something, do nothing, do something major. And in weighing all our options, our journey was not to hook and drag anyone. We had talked about with architects, hey, do we just start from scratch and build a bigger house with the pool on the lakeside and, you know, and some sort of new development and make a big, you know, sprawling, max out the property. And as we evaluated our purchase, which has 3 over 100-year-old trees on it, it has a beautiful history in Montauk. Of course, yes, we were drawn to the proximity. However, the angle of the lake, we did evaluate a bigger project, but again, negligence doesn't remove responsibility. We truly, on paper, in being young homeowners in a growing family, baby on the way, in evaluating this project, thought that we would do more justice to the town by working within the walls, that at least now, obviously, the walls are gone, and I apologize for that. But we were not intending to simply reconstruct, because for us as inexperienced homeowners with this type of thing, there was no benefit to keep the walls or not. We just were excited by the fact of, hey, we bought this house because we love the size of it. It's not too big. It has a single-story great room that has some character. The bedrooms are modest. They're 12 by 12. And we said, can we accommodate our family a little more comfortably? It's growing. Now, I'm sorry my wife couldn't be here. So, as Andy mentioned, we have a newborn, 2 weeks old.
Congratulations, that's nice.
Thank you very much. Can we accommodate our family a little bit more comfortably? And as inexperienced, we thought it'd be less invasive if we worked on the existing foundation. So our journey was exploratory to do something big and further back versus sticking with the existing foundation. And we were willing to do whatever it took to meet the requirements to do that, as in our head, upgrading the septic system, going to a geothermal heating and cooling, moving the septic system further away, keeping the pool on the street side. These were things that happened in a domino effect. Again, not to, you know, ultimately end up here seeking approval of new construction. We wanted that to be done appropriately, and we were very appreciative of our initial approval, and we wanted to just move forward and do that project as it was intended. Us looking on paper, yes, we understood we were going to change the roof line, but we were explained to that could be elevated and again, be done in accordance with what was approved. I don't ever intend to speak negatively about people. I just do think that in the course of the project, there was a lot going on. We had COVID. It was hard to get people to work. There was.
Can I just ask you?
Absolutely.
And this is the year of COVID question, if you will.
Sure.
Your stop work order was issued 11/19/20.
Right.
We have an amended demolition plan dated 11/23/20, 4 days later.
Correct.
It's pretty dang fast. What was going on in those 4 days? That's pretty fast to turn around a demolition.
Well, we were lighting fires under contractors and architects' butts saying we had approved plans. What did you guys do wrong? And I think initially we were quickly reacting as we didn't understand the journey that we were about to embark on, and whether this was something that could be quickly, you know, addressed, and didn't foresee us being down this road. We thought that if we were able to, you know, submit adjusted plans, that we could continue on with our project. So I held accountable our architect and contractor and said,
What date? So I also see your permit set was 7/14, which was probably around the time you submitted for a building permit.
In the summer.
It's
So the
interesting.
house valued by 92.
And again, sir, we don't, you know, you're a fine family. We all know that. We don't, you know, if we don't make decisions on the character of people. On
I understand.
personalities or the character. But thank you for your service and all that you do for our community. We appreciate that. But we have to stick to kind of what's before us here. And when I go back and I talk about a bait and switch, it's like you look through the plans here and you interesting that on the second floor plans, they talk about replace this, shows a whole other roof. There's nothing about replacing roofs and all that. And, you know, I don't know who is driving this, working with your architect, who is whatever, but that's what we have to look at.
I do understand.
We know you're a fine person and congratulations on your young family, but nonetheless, that's what we have to work with. I will ask you one question. Where were you when this whole house was being demolished? I mean, that's, there's dumpster fees and there's all this new additional lumber. It's like for a contractor just to volunteer to demolish your house and rebuild it without you knowing about it seems a little strange to me, and I wonder where you were when all that was going on.
I do understand the question. Well, first, I want to address that. Again, as I acknowledge, you guys have a purpose. The purpose has drawn me to this community. I'm here to do the best I can to, you know, explain that this wasn't intentional. And
So where were you when that was all happening?
I operate my business. I work 6 days a week. Our facility's in the South Bronx. My kids go to school in Manhattan.
Oh, okay. I thought you had been living out here for 25 years.
No, I've been a member of the community for 25 years.
Okay,
Um,
go on. Okay.
But all I want to do, and not to say, you know, my character, but just to present the scenario that we didn't intend for it to be reconstructed. I would have been thrilled using those existing walls. It is to no benefit.
Again, then I'm not trying to be facetious, but then did your contractor because when you tear off a roof and rebuild a roof, we all know that's a lot of labor just to do it. It's a lot of dumpsters to do it.
Mhm.
It's a lot of labor to rebuild it. It's a lot of material cost to rebuild the whole new house. What was going on with the finances there? We say you knew none of this was happening. What was going on there? That doesn't make sense.
The finances were always anticipated to be large because we knew constructing a house very specifically within an existing structure with very, you know, specific requirements was going to be extremely costly. And we were willing to do that again to preserve this piece of property with these old trees and what we've grown to love about living there. So we were watching closely and assumed, again, it's our responsibility, not passing. We hired these people that these specific costs were very needed.
You were watching that the dumpster cost and the new roof cost. You're watching all that. Well, you're not following my.
No, I do understand. I don't want to dispute anything. I do, everything you're saying is from.
You just showed up one day and the house was torn down and the contractor said, oh, I'm just going to be raising the roof up 4 more feet and I'm going to buy you new lumber and I'm going to buy you the roof that's, you know, and sheathing and I'm just going to, it just doesn't make sense to me.
I do understand that. What I will say is you're much more experienced at this than I am. You see hundreds of these a year. I did go through a journey with an architect and a contractor on paper that is mostly two-dimensional, not an excuse, a reality. We looked at existing footprints, room layouts. As a homeowner, we did very much focus on inside the walls versus structure, roof, etc. And
I'm going to cut you off because we normally give you about 3 or 10 minutes with your agent, and we're going to hear from the planning department now, okay? And then maybe if there's something you give your quick comment at the end, but we hear what you're saying, okay?
I do understand.
And thank you for coming out too.
Thank you for having me. It's not easy what you guys do.
Thank you. No, Michael, good evening, Michael. I'll go ahead and swear you.
For the planning department?
Michael, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. I think the board members have sussed out a lot of what makes this one difficult. It came in 2019 and received a determination for additions. You look at the two plans side by side, there really isn't a significant difference between the two with the exception of that one sheet. The additions were presented, it was applied for and presented to the planning department, to the board as just that, as additions. The elevations, on the seaward side, I mean, admittedly, those tell a different story. Those eaves were, it was about 12 feet on those. And when you look at the photos that are in the board's file and I submitted, the old house from the BP inspection was significantly lower. Unfortunately, that's gone at this point. The concern of the planning department at that time was largely related to the sanitary system and the work out of jurisdiction. And while they can do the work out of jurisdiction as a matter of right, our concern was that the location where they proposed the sanitary system forced any future redevelopment to be in the same location. And here we are, a year and a half later, effectively contemplating that. So it's not an easy decision. I don't have a significant amount of mitigation that could offset what it effectively is a new house. They're moving it back means removing the sanitary system. You could probably push it. You could probably push everything to meet 100 feet. It'd be squeezed up against the work out of jurisdiction. It would be a significant amount of work. I don't envy the decision before the board at this point, weighing the options of what we have, what we've been led to, and what the prudent thing to do is. Had this come in as a redevelopment, as you've said, we undoubtedly would have recommended it be moved back in the sanitary, in the most conforming location possible, preserving, the environmental conditions on the property, enhancing them, improving them, which is what we do with every redevelopment in the town. So it feels a little bit like the work out of jurisdiction and the sanitary system kind of forces us with what we're at. So I don't really have too much to add. And I leave myself available for any questions from the board.
I just want to thank you for all your work on this, Michael, and your previous work. And again, just to hear that, it sounds like I am correct that the way this was presented to this board and the way it was always presented.
It was the way it was written in the application was additions.
Right. And your TAM, as you say, your technical analysis memo would have been greatly different if we knew that this house was going to be raised inadvertently or not. Contractor error or not, that we can't deal with. That's not something we can so it sounds like that's the way, that was your understanding back in 2019, correct?
I believe it was the board's submitted determination. Yeah.
Exactly.
This was addition. They were relatively minor, about 484 square feet.
Yes. Well, thanks for all your work, Michael.
Well, Michael, do you have any of the photos from before the last hearing in 2019?
The 2019, they should be in the board's file from then. I can print out those old memos from the previous file and get them over to the board if you'd like.
Yeah, well,
To possibly get a better idea as to what.
Yeah, maybe whatever photos you do have, if you could put them in the file and scan them to the board members.
Yeah, I'll use the photos that I had from, I would have done an existing conditions memo.
Yeah, email is great.
I can just email that memo directly to the board tomorrow.
Great. Great. Any questions, board members from Michael?
I would just like to say, in backing up what's been said by the chair and the vice chair, is that I visited the site and it does not appear in any way that accidental work was done on the site. Nobody would have done the kind of work that's been done without instruction, prints that were approved, and a move forward by the powers that be. If the client, the applicant in this case, did not know what was going on, that's unfortunate. But this is a significant amount of new work done, so it went beyond the original application, and there's no way in which this is just an accidental additional amount of work. It's a serious amount of work, And you see that, and it's quite obvious when you're on the site. And I think that has been pointed out accurately by the vice chair, that we see that the original drawing was presented here, and I was not part of that decision. It was not on the board's end, but and the drawings that we have now are at variance. And so it is pretty obvious, standing at the site, that something very different has been done than was the original intention. So that's my observation, and having talked to a little bit about what our options are as a board, which we'll discuss later, our options are here. It's a difficult one to have to face at this point because a lot of work has been done that should not have been done, frankly. That's what, and it doesn't appear to me in any way that somebody has done something that went slightly beyond what their jurisdiction or their right was as a contractor. And as a contractor, no one would do that amount of work without some guarantee of both payment and justification for what they were doing. So I do think this is a very serious one, and we see that while we're standing there. And that's just my observation from today. I think it's an important one for us to try to keep in line exactly what was the process, what was the timeline according to what's already been discussed by other board members.
Well, thank you, Ed, for that. I just have two comments quickly, and then Andy and I'm sorry, you're TJ, we'll let you comment briefly, then we'll move on. But so before you do get up, Andy, I would like, as I've mentioned to you, I would like, this board would like to have the full size set of the building, what was submitted to the building department, what was approved, that set for our files, okay? If you have any photos of the existing house, if you have any backup, I'm kind of wondering if this contractor was licensed in the town of East Hampton, but that's maybe beyond our jurisdiction this evening. So I would like that. We would be holding the written record open for that, and for anything else you may want to add, you're welcome to, okay, as far as historical references. And I just also, on a completely different note, while Michael's standing here, Michael is, I hope you don't mind, Michael, if there's not many more meetings, Michael's going to be relocating with his family. And we're happy for that, but we're certainly saddened to see Michael go. He's been I've been chairman for 7 years, and Michael's just been an absolute gentleman with whom to work. And I see Andy and Joel nodding that he knows what he's doing.
Nodding is only.
Oh, Andy's nodding this way. Anyway, I won't go on, but Michael, thank you for your service to the town of East Hampton.
There are no striped bass in Boston. Right, Andy?
On the menu.
And you don't want to eat it.
Andy and
can
Joel?
I would like to do it. I don't think we need hard copy. I'd recommend maybe PDF drawings is fine, but because this is a lot of paper, but.
Yeah, emailing the plans would be fine, because we can zoom in.
But I'd like to see the permit set.
Yeah.
There's some inconsistencies, what I see from the architect's dates. Because we have a permit set at 7/14, then there's 8/31/20, and then 11/30 called design development. I'm not asking for those, but I am asking for a copy of the 9/21/20, which is labeled the construction set. So the permit set and the 9/21/20 construction set.
Joel, how long do you need to get those to us? 2 weeks? Okay.
Okay, good. Okay, guys, I think we gave you a lot of time. It was a lot of our time. Tim said, we're an hour in, as Tim says. So I don't think there's much more to be said right
No,
now.
the only thing I want to say is, Ed mentioned that there was work that was done in excess of what was approved. I think the only thing that was done is the south and north walls of the project were removed. I mean, now everything else was contemplated by the scope of the project. Those two walls should have been refurbed and replayed, but the interior finishes, all that stuff was part of the original permit set. I'm not saying that's not a notable change in the scope of the project. However, the difference between that and, this wasn't a overnight demolition, the scope of work and the cost probably would have been substantial either way with respect to those walls.
You're forgetting about the roof, the whole roof too.
The roof, I don't see how you could look at the plans and say it wasn't going to be replaced because of that front elevation. And I'm not saying this is done because.
No notes, there's no notes, there's no existing conditions, but I'm gonna keep repeating.
We'll have to look at the building price, but I understand what the board wants. We'll get them to you as quickly as we can.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, guys. So, Ed, would you like to make a motion,
Keep the record open until August 17th.
17, for the written record?
In the case of
In case, oh yeah, Christine Murphy, I'm sorry, couldn't find Christine Murphy. Christine Murphy, 257 East Coast Drive, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-13-01-13 and 19. I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing for keep the record, is that right? For 2 weeks.
Until August 17th, council?
August 17th, please.
You got it right. That's great.
All right, I'm gonna second that motion.
Concur.
You concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Again, apologies.
Thank you.
Okay, our second and final scheduled public hearing for this evening. The applicants are Cullinan and Friedman, and the lot size and location is 18,710 square feet at 31 Breeze Hill Lane, Springs, tax map number 300-94-6-9. Description is to construct a 264 square foot garage and allow a 306 square foot deck to remain on a parcel of land containing tidal and freshwater wetlands. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-4-20, variances from 255-4-30, minimum wetland setbacks, 255-11-74A, other setbacks, and any other relief necessary. Variances are required 95.2 feet, 84.3 feet to construct the garage and allow the deck to remain 4.8 feet and 15.7 feet from the wetlands where 100 feet is required. One variance of 7 feet for the decking to remain 3 feet from the scenic easement where 10 feet is required. This is in a B residence zone. The flood zone here is 80 flood zone elevation 6, and the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
We have affidavit of mailings on the 22nd day of July and posting on the 23rd day of July, so the paperwork appears to be in order.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. This is in Vice Chair Delaney Springs.
Yes.
District going for Woodlands. Thank you.
So I visited the site actually yesterday, and you can see this is properly noticed. Just kind of taking a few pictures, right, and I'm going to be walking into the site. We are looking west. This is the east side of 3 Mile Harbor. Next photo. Again, taking a look, this is the retaining wall that's shown on the survey, and that's the house beyond that. Again, this is taking a look over the retaining wall septic area and to the neighboring house and showing some of the screening. This is the area where the garage is proposed to go. It's hard to see, but there's a tiny little shed type thing there that's meant to be removed. This is now going down the southern side of the house, looking west. This is then the deck that's going to be discussed tonight as well. Taking a look back at the deck and the house. taking a look, this is looking north. And you can see the grass line in the buffer and I think a swing, next photo. This is the gravel path and it looked a little bit fabricated. I'm not sure if it's completely natural. I think Michael can talk about that, but just wanted to bring that out. And this is looking south to the neighboring property. Again, looking back at from basically the water's edge, looking back to the house. One more picture looking at the neighboring house. Oh, I'm actually going to take a few photos here showing you the neighborhood. You can see there's a cottage style homes in this area.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Oh, that was the last one?
Yeah.
Okay, so I probably did take it.
Well, thanks for those are good to have in the file. I was there today as well, but those are important photographs. Any questions for Roy and his field report?
I do have a question for you, Roy. That the pathway down to the water, is that an approved dimension on that? Does that look like it's wider than 4 feet?
I didn't look at it. I don't, it's a good question.
I was there today. It's close to 4.
It was close. I don't think.
And the material is the gravel that's been brought in there.
Mhm. Yes, that's a good period. Okay, thank you, Roy, for that. Okay, we will go on to the applicant's agent. Good evening, Madeline.
Good evening, Madeline Van John, Hampton, Weston, representing the applicants. So we submitted a memo of law last year. The public hearing was actually canceled due to COVID. We submitted one last year and then we submitted another letter last week. So I'll just go through the basics on this. This property was redeveloped a few years back with the zoning board approval, and the current owners purchased it directly from the builder who did that redevelopment. When they purchased it, there was no storage on the property, no outdoor storage of any kind, and they had been told that they could put a shed in the lawn area, which obviously was incorrect information, and they began constructing a shed, which led to a violation, and that's since been removed, but now they came to us looking for a better solution for outdoor storage, and that was how we came to the current garage application. Another issue that happened when they purchased the property is that the certificate of occupancy showed lawn extending into an area that has been flagged as a wetland, and it passed through the building department because the property was under allowable clearing, so no one noticed that there was this lawn area that was extending into what had been previously flagged as a wetland, which is why they were under the impression that there was no wetland there, which I understand is not an excuse. I just want to explain the circumstances as to what happens here. So basically, as part of this proposal for the garage, we're proposing to restore the wetland along the southerly edge of the property, which currently has no wetland vegetation in it. And our revegetation plan is to restore an 850 square foot wetland, along with over 1,800 square feet of revegetation of lawn, and then an additional 3,300 square feet of area that has native trees and is considered uncleared. We're proposing to basically supplement that with more plants to basically improve the wetland quality and to improve the ability of, we don't want to have lawn and bare dirt there. The idea is to improve the recharging ability to maybe reduce some of the flooding there and offset everything. The proposed garage is only 264 square feet, and we are proposing to remove that small shed, other bins, some slates. So the overall increase in coverage is only 69 square feet. So the idea was that by proposing all of this revegetation, that we would be offsetting any potential increase in runoff from just 69 more square feet of coverage. However, we talked to the applicants recently and they decided they want to offer to upgrade the septic system as part of this application. Ordinarily, that would be done as part of an expansion of the house. We know this house will never be able to be expanded, so they're offering to upgrade the septic system as mitigation to offset any potential runoff, anything like that from the garage, just because this is a unique situation and there would be basically no other opportunity to get the septic system upgraded. That's why they wanted to offer this as mitigation. They know this, it's not an option to expand the house, anything like that. So they wanted to offer that, which obviously reducing significant amount of nitrogen that would be going into 3 Mile Harbor would hopefully provide a pretty good environmental benefit on the property. And the second part of this application is the deck on the water side of the property. There was a deck originally approved in that location. It consisted of basically 3 long, large steps going down toward the water. And I guess they didn't believe it was functional or safe. Basically, it didn't really serve any purpose. So the contractor at the time altered it, made the staircase smaller, and made 2 sort of areas next to it where you can fit a chair or 2. Overall, it got about 2.1 feet closer to the wetlands. So it wasn't a significant reconstruction. The deck was approved there. It just, when they changed the configuration of the stairs, it got a little closer. And there is also a variance requested from the scenic easement, which I think something odd happened there because the easement was not in place at the time of the last application. It was a condition, and nobody realized that even the approved deck would have technically needed a variance from the easement because it was approved to be constructed within 10 feet of the easement. Because it wasn't considered at the time, since the easement was proposed and not in place. So basically, that's pretty much the proposal we have. I can answer any questions. We're just hoping that the significant mitigation for the small garage will be enough for everyone's consideration. They're just trying to basically be able to store their car and things like trash, paddleboards, everything like that inside instead of having them out on the property because there's nowhere else. Due to FEMA, there's truly just a small crawl space on this property. No opportunity for storage underneath the house or anywhere like that.
So I have 1 or 2, if I may. Oh, Roy, it's in yours.
The questions I have is, we really haven't addressed the concern of character of neighborhood. In this neighborhood, you have very small cottages. There are a few garages in here, but these garages are very tiny homes. This is a substantial house home already. The TAM's pretty clear on that too, as far as future expansion and everything. And it seems to be ongoing creep going on here with a house that is, looming over some of these small cottages to begin with. So adding a garage, you really haven't addressed that as far as how does that fit into the neighborhood, adding another structure like that.
Okay, so the house is about 2,000 square feet. I think it is larger than the one cottage next door. I would just say overall, it's not an excessively large house. And some of the other properties are pretty well developed. The one next door has a pool right adjacent to where we're proposing this garage. And the garage is 264 square feet and it meets the yard setbacks. So the only variances are for the wetlands. So if anybody else on the street didn't have wetlands, they could build a similar garage in the front of the property. It does meet those requirements. And the idea was to create a relatively small garage that wouldn't really be visible from much of anywhere due to all the trees in the front of the property.
I ask you a couple of things.
Yeah.
Did your client, the owner, the current owner, I'll say your client, the applicant, did they purchase the house? I was there this afternoon. It's a beautiful location, obviously. Did they purchase the house exactly as it is, like 2 years ago? Has anything changed since they've been there?
Not that I know of. Well, I mean, there was where they began constructing the shed and then that was removed.
Right, but
besides that, I don't believe anything has changed on the property.
Number one? Yeah. Okay, thank you, Tim. Okay, so yeah, sure.
What is the date on that?
This is the re-veg plan here.
Yeah.
This one is a revised 9/15/19.
Right. Yeah.
And the earlier one was a 2/05/19. Like I said, I have it. So getting back, what I'm wondering is, it doesn't matter too much, I guess, who did it, but it's done, and the planning department will be addressing this. Besides all of the former revegetation being ignored and being cut down and lawn put in, and the wetlands were graded, again, Michael will be getting to that, so I won't go on, but there was that sort of work that went on. And also I appreciate Roy's photographs, because going down to that gravel path, if you look to the northeast and you look to the southwest at the neighboring vegetation, Michael will talk about I can't recall that plant, but you know, Madeline, what I'm talking about. Somebody clearly cut all that stuff down, let the Phragmites grow up so they can trim the Phragmites. It's a very, yes, it's a real kind of chunk taken out of the natural vegetation. It just goes to Phragmites. So that's something that certainly needs to be addressed as far as the grading and the wetlands, and also the deck that was built, expanded and reconstructed without a building permit has to be addressed. And then in the shed or the garage, that's another question. But nonetheless, there's a lot of things that have to get done here, whether or not this shed or garage is approved. Okay. And I appreciate your revegetation plan because it's a start. It's a start to what has to be done.
Yeah, and if there's any different plant species or anything like that, we're happy to take recommendations from the planning department on that. We're not set on anything that's in there. That's just our board.
I'm finished for now. Any questions, board members, for Madeline? No.
Just wondered if you had seen the email that came in from a neighbor.
I believe we submitted something around the time of our last hearing that got canceled, though. I did see that.
Yeah, so that was it. Just wanted.
There's a new one in
Yeah,
the
he
file.
keeps sending me.
No, thank you. I'm saying thank you, Tim. Yeah, this is a fairly, I saw one that was received.
Yeah,
This one's from 2020.
Yeah, I think we have one just
so
from,
we have a new
from a
one
week
from
ago.
that same person.
yeah, about a week ago.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's not one of the immediately adjacent neighbors, but he does live up the street.
So let's hear from the planning department, and then Madeline, you can close us out, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening again, Michael.
Board members, Mike Gillette, the planning department again. This is located over on Breeze Hill in Springs off of Will Curl. And they're proposing to add the garage and legalize the decking that was expanded sometime based on area review, sometime between 2016 and 2018. The current owners purchased the property, I believe, in 2014. Overall, I honestly don't really know where to begin. The planning department is looking for a denial on this. There's really no two ways about it. The garage is it's a 95% reduction in the setbacks. It's 4.8 feet from a wetland in an area with flooding problems. I believe a number of the board members have been to the site. Breeze Hill slopes down to pretty much right in front of this property. There are two wetlands on this property, one of which has been significantly filled and regraded. That pushes a lot of the runoff right into the street. The other one on the north side, a little bit less so. So you've already got compromised flooding in the area, and you're going to increase the amount of coverage, the amount of roof runoff, the amount of sheet runoff from that into an area that already floods. I'm going to show you the aerials.
You know when those wetlands were filled in, by the way?
They were originally flagged as part of the 2005 or prior to the 2005 application that approved the redevelopment of the entire lot. They were also part of the 2011. The application or the property received a certificate of occupancy in 2014. When I first visited the property in 2018, is when it came to my attention. At that point, I didn't have any history on the property. Going through the files of the significant variances that were required for the redevelopment of the lot, for the sanitary system, for everything, it was a significant change. And there were a number of other staff members who were there. Other things that we noticed I'll get into in a little bit. But there was a significant change from when the planning department signed off on the redevelopment prior to the 2014 certificate of occupancy, and when we visited it in 2018, including the shed or container that was on the property that was on the CO, or not on the CO, it's on the board submitted survey. That was removed shortly before the previously scheduled hearing prior to it being canceled because of the pandemic. So I just want to draw your attention to the aerial up on the screen. You've got 3 Mile Harbor on the west side and a pretty significant swamp and wetland right across the street. And you can see in the aerial, it's faint in the 2020, but you can see evidence of road flooding right in front of the property. If it's not road flooding, it's likely sediment coming from this property and depositing in the roadway. 2018, you see it more so. You know, this is an area right here. It's directly across the property. That's roads, that's staining in the road. So a property this non-conforming to add more structures is really ill-advised. It's the planning department's opinion that, you know, really the property was arguably already maxed out, if not over the maximum that really should have been allowed as part of the 2005 and later 2011 applications that received a CO. Regarding the scenic easement on the west side of the property that was established as part of the prior determination, you know, that area has, every time I've been there, been cleared in one regard or another. So this is a photo from, I believe, February of 19. It may have been, I think it was February 19. I believe that's when I originally got this application, and my assessment was issued later in the year. So this has been hanging around for a while, where these situations could have been remediated. You see that the Phragmites in that area was also cut.
What's the date of this?
I believe this was in February of 19. I don't know an exact date.
So there was no Phragmites that lived at that point.
Well, that's Phragmites right here. I'm going to show you a photo that's also in that, you know, that came as part of the sign off for prior to the, bear with me, try not to get yeah, a little dizzy as I scroll here. But when the planning department signed off for the C of O at the end of the redevelopment, a moment longer. There are 2 determinations that are associated with the existing conditions memo. So this is 2011. This is that deck that was previously constructed. You can see something.
And that was, as Madeline said, that's the approved deck.
This is the approved deck, and that's how it was approved, with these steps down, a very short area outside of the rear of the residence with steps down, and it got the prior proper approvals. Regarding the scenic easement, the board, it's been the practice of the board with when imposing scenic easements, that if it's imposed as a board condition, it does not have to meet the 10-foot setback. So the board can put an easement right up to a structure if they're approving it, if they feel it's pertinent and necessary. Any additional work after that would need variances from the 10-foot setback. So this was approved in that location. It was arguably within that 10-foot setback. It has since expanded, but I want to draw your attention to over here.
Yeah.
These are pretty established groundsel and likely IVA that are in that swale before you kind of get to the cobble beach. And when you look, you know, immediately to the south, you see them again. When you look immediately to the north of the property, you see that again. So this application has been in front of the planning department since, I believe, early 2019, hoping to add additional structures to the property. And they have not maintained the scenic easement that was revegetated. You can see there, that's the vegetation that was planted as part of the prior determination. That has been pulled out. There are a number of other conditions with the property that have not been upheld. They have expanded the deck, arguably increasing the intensity of use. And the planning department, you know, would, you know, not that a new sanitary system isn't good. It's hard to us, it's hard to draw a nexus between a new sanitary system for a structure that doesn't increase living space directly, doesn't increase flow, and for a structure that's 5 feet from the wetlands. Arguably, if the board approves it as such and considers it as mitigation, really you could get any accessory structure you want a 95% reduction in the setbacks for a sanitary system. So we applaud them for coming up with some mitigation. We don't feel that there's any potential mitigation that would offset the detriment that would be caused to the neighborhood, to the road end, as part of this garage. And that's really the nuts and bolts of it. There are some other issues. There are variances that weren't applied for, including the ability to retain the fill. They haven't, you need a variance to fill a wetland. They haven't applied for that. This application, you want to say it, there isn't topography on the survey that's before the board. And it was because the planning department felt that it would be better to get this in front of the board and the board to see this than allow it to be incomplete and allow it to extend longer. The best source of topography that we have for the area is, some of the information we have available goes through a LiDAR through the GIS system that the town has. There were spot elevations on the previously approved survey for the redevelopment, but that's it. They don't tell the whole story.
And let me just interrupt there to that point. I'm glad you brought that up because between those spot elevations and using whatever we can to get to the original topography, this area clearly, that certain area on the west side certainly was filled, correct, and graded smooth.
Very likely.
Pretty obvious.
Based on what I've seen, you're looking at, probably an elevation somewhat, there's probably a depression on the north and south side of that driveway. Forgive me, I'm having a few issues.
If you went to the neighboring property, you would see natural grade too.
Yes, and you would likely see on the west side of the road, a bit of a swale in that area, a bit of a depression. That helped manage the flooding. By regrading that area, they pushed all of that into the roadway. I believe take it as anecdotal because I didn't take photos, but the first time I went there was, again, I believe in February of 19. And there was ice in that entire roadway.
The reason I bring that up is no matter what happens with the proposed garage approval or not, work has to be done here. It's a code enforcement issue for this board. So that would be part of it. Again, asking the planning department to go back to what was approved and to work with the applicants on the areas that were to be revegetated. You can see already that trees were removed in the front yard. You've pointed out that there's been clearing between the house and the beach, and it was very obvious when I was there. There's been regrading on the west side where the wetlands are. So my point is, even that data there you have, I know you've got a little bit of topo.
That's obviously the best that.
Yeah, but still you can work with that. That's my point. That this board would ask the planning department to work with that topo to come up with with a plan that has to be done no matter what's approved, because it's a code enforcement issue. When there was a certain clearing and revegetation that's been mowed down.
If the board were looking to deny the application, it would end up being, I would suggest that the board, CC code enforcement on their determination. That would then put it on their window, and then they would be able to go through the proper channels. There was a stop work order issued for the shed and decking that you see here. And that's kind of what started this back in, I believe it was 2016, but that may be wrong. So it's already in front of code enforcement. They have an open file on it. This would just bolster that a little bit to get the situation remediated.
Is there some other decking that I missed that was built without a permit that you?
There was a small amount of decking around this shed.
Okay.
That's on the survey. I believe it was covered by a tarp every time that I've been there, because I don't think they got to the point where they had the shed all sheathed up and weather tight. So I think it was just framed and it was on, it was filled and I'm assuming it was on blocks if it was moved so easily prior to the last hearing.
Okay,
And that
thank you, Mike.
shed's in the wetland.
That shed was located within the wetlands, correct, based on the survey that is in the board's file.
The present septic systems went in with the redevelopment of the property?
Correct. That included the retaining walls in order to meet the groundwater separation. Here is the survey associated with their certificate of occupancy. And you can see that change in the deck. And you can see the clearing line as it was. This was the wetland down here. This area, as you'll note in the photos, and having a number of you been there on site, this area slowly grades up, and that depression is no longer there. It's no longer functioning, and that's likely what's leading to some of the flooding in the roadway.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, as far as a proper revegetation plan.
Putting in some form of, effectively a constructed wetland to help mitigate what's gone on. And, what will continue until that fix is going to be needed.
Yep. Any other questions from Michael, board members?
Not for my-
Okay. Michael, thanks again for your work on this. Thank you. Madeline, a quick closing comment?
Yeah. I just wanted to address a couple of things about the timeline of what happened there. So the CO that was issued in 2014, the survey that's attached to that, basically shows lawn going into the flagged wetland. And that is what my clients were provided with when they bought the property, was that there's a CO attached to that survey. So they didn't 100% understand what they were looking at, but when you have your survey attached to your CO, you assume that's what's legal, and that's where it showed the lawn. So that's why they put the shed there. And it is correct that the reference to decking in the code enforcement violation, it was sort of a platform attached to the shed that has all since been removed. I believe code enforcement called that decking, but there's no additional decking on the house. That was.
Did the C of O miss that the front deck had gotten larger?
I'm not sure about the timeline of that. I know that the builder changed that for them around the time they purchased the property. It may have been done after I believe it was done after he obtained that C of O. So that's kind of what happened there. And I also, the vegetation that was put in when the planning department signed off on the CO, that was removed prior to their purchase of the property. We've seen the memos in the planning department's file showing that all this vegetation was in there. The planning department signed off, and then that was removed prior. When we showed our clients the photos, they hadn't seen it looking like that with the vegetation all in place. So it's an unfortunate situation, but that's what happened there.
Thank you for that.
And then in terms of why we didn't apply for a variance for the fill for the wetland, that's because we're proposing to restore it. So we're not proposing to keep lawn there.
And go back to the proper topography, the existing topography, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, if we didn't, we would have provided new topography if we'd been asked for it, but we weren't. So we're happy to regrade back to maybe what was on the prior approval as a condition as part of revegetating that.
Well, it wouldn't be a condition of approval.
Yeah, it's actually required,
It's going to be required.
no matter what.
That would be an issue for code enforcement and justice court, I suppose, if we go down that route of things. But in terms of mitigation for our requests, whether it's
Restoring it is mitigation.
right. Well, I mean, it's an unfortunate situation that my clients did not understand that
Or if
the
your
lawn that they received.
proposal is to do that.
Yeah, it's just, the CO they received showing the lawn there, they understood that to be legal. They'd never seen the property with a wetland in that area, and they didn't understand that was what was going on there. And in terms of the deck on the front of the property, at this point, we thought it would cause more disturbance to put it back the way it was. But that's why we asked to keep it the way it's been done, since it's been that way for several years. And again, they were just told that the builder told them he was just reconfiguring it, and they didn't think that was a problem. I know that's not an excuse either, but that's what happened there. They weren't intending to get closer to the wetlands in that case. I think that's and then the only other thing I have is regarding the flooding, is that we're hoping with all of the revegetation we're proposing that will ameliorate the flooding conditions. We're really not trying to make it worse, since we'd only be increasing coverage by 69 square feet, and we've been proposing all of this revegetation and the wetland restoration. We're hoping that would more than cancel out any potential increase in runoff. That's pretty much everything I have.
And then how do we deal with the fragmites?
That would have to be part of our veg plan if anything was approved.
Yeah, we're happy to do whatever the
It's
water
obvious.
department would want down there.
That would- Any questions?
Nope.
No, okay, thank you, Madeline. Have a good evening.
Make a motion.
Oh, sure, yeah, go ahead if you would. Thank you, council.
No problem.
Therefore, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing and the record. Holiday Freeman, 31 Retail Lane, Spring, tax map number 300-094-05.
I concur.
And I concur.
And I concur. Thank you, Roy. Okay, and thanks again, Mike. Okay. We'll move along next to the work session portion of our meeting. Start off with, I believe we have post-hearing decisions. We'll start off with 2112 Hunting Lane LLC. And I'll look at that file. Okay, this is, so this is, I'll just read this in and hand this off to Tim. This is at 2112 Hunting Lane LLC, 42 Hedges Banks Drive in East Hampton, tax map number 300-35-2-5 in the board member Brown's district. Tim, if you lead us off, that'd be great.
Sure. So this property is at 42 Hedges Banks Drive in East Hampton. Initially submitted to us with an NRSP and 4 variances, all related to coastal setbacks, relating to pole fencing, retaining wall, pool deck, and patio. This property is in the landfall area of East Hampton. And the date of the hearing was May 18th, 2021. You'll recall that when I did the field report, I highlighted the slope of the property, which is dramatic. According to what we had on our survey, it looks like at the street level, the property is at 35 feet of elevation, and it goes down to about 24 feet at the bluff, as near as I can tell, at the top of the bluff. This is a total redevelopment of the property, demolition of the existing improvements. And the majority of the improvements that were being proposed at the time were out of jurisdiction. It includes an IA septic system and triggers that, quite frankly. That system will be located 162 feet from the wetland, from the top of the dune, whereas it's 92 feet currently. We also, the proposed improvements would include the removal of an asphalt driveway and the placement of that driveway greater than 100 feet. During the hearing, the retaining wall, the applicant's representatives, which I should note, were Bruce Anderson of Suffolk Environmental and Alex Ham, who was the architect. During the hearing, they indicated that the retaining wall could be removed. There were a number of concerns that were raised during the hearing, and I would say that the majority, if not all of those, were responded to in a letter we received post-hearing dated June 22nd. It includes a note indicating that all proposed structures have setback at 100 feet or more from the top of the bluff. The proposed pool fence follows the contour of the base of the hill adjacent to the pool. Proposed pool enclosure fence will be landscaped. The existing tree to the north of the pool, which was a concern, was to remain. The proposed buffer has been expanded to 50 feet landward of the top of the bluff, and that the site plan contains drainage calculations with respect to dry wells, also depicted on the plan. And the proposed site plan was Z-1, and I printed it on a very small piece of paper, so I'm not sure I have.
I have it right here.
60219.
Yep.
60219, yep. Yep.
Okay. So a couple of the questions I have, I mean, the indication is that all of the improvements would be 100 feet or more from the bluff. However, I'm thinking that the fact that the fencing follows the contour, which means it just sort of wraps around the contour of the property, which was very sloping there, but I don't believe the fence was planned to be pulled all the way back. I might be wrong. I don't see how it could follow the contour and be pulled all the way back. So I believe that we still have the 55-foot pool fencing variance. The retaining wall was to be removed. The pool deck, we can see from the revised plan, removes the pool deck. And the 10-foot patio looks to have been pulled back. So I believe, and please correct me if you're reading this differently, but I believe what we have now is an NRSP and one variance of 55 feet for the pool fencing. Does anybody have a different understanding of it?
Well, thank you for that, Tim. It looks like, I'm just going to make sure I'm correct here. It says 100-foot bluff setback. And it looks like it goes right to the house, right? But this is it. So that is certainly meeting the 100-foot, right? But we do have this deck. That is the steps. I mean, it's landscaping. It's not the structure. It's the steps and the landscaping. It looks like it's culture. Then over here, we have 100-foot to the pool. It looks like the house and the pool do. It looks like the landscape, the terrace does not, correct, if the pool is right here. And I believe, I'm just asking, it seemed like, as I recall at the meeting, we did talk about this pool fence to bury it down into one of the contours we had picked out. Is that correct?
What was the I thought that the original pool fence was
Yeah, we
going here, but it was going straight across, and we asked them to follow the contour.
Yes, exactly. Am I looking at the wrong page on that?
I don't think that that's the same.
Okay,
That's what were we looking for?
Yeah.
Do you have in this, can you bring up the
Yes.
site plan that's dated 6/4?
Yeah, if you would, 6/2/19.
Well, he
Oh,
refers,
good. That's it.
but he
Go ahead.
refers in a letter
Mhm.
that 9 sets of site plans dated 6/4/2021. This one's dated 6/2/2019.
Right.
So I don't know, I don't think the 2/19 is the most recent, but I don't have in my file.
Well, now I have a receipt. I have a June 12th. 2020 receipt stamp, but the date is.
That's what it is, but there's a
Oh,
response to
Oh,
ZBA
thank you.
6/4/20.
Okay,
pardon me,
That's
guys,
where
there's
it is.
revision dates
Okay.
up top. we're
Perfect.
missing. Yeah,
that's where we're getting
that's the
confused.
issue.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so we have a 5/19/20.
There we go. Okay, now I
Yeah,
have the
there we
right
go.
one.
And that's up at the top of the page.
Okay,
And then we have a further revision of 6/4/20
yep,
of page Z1. So that, and that's his response to ZBA 5/18/21 comments.
All right, so there you have it.
So there you have it.
And there you can see that the pool deck is no
It's pulled
longer.
back. You're
Well,
correct.
here's the pool deck was here.
Exactly. And this other deck is pulled back. You're
Yeah.
correct. Yes.
So I think that
And the fence is where we discussed it? We kind of
Yes.
nestled it in there in the topo? Yes.
And would you say what line is that fence at this point? Because it was previously
It even
55
says
feet,
that proposed fence is going to be 70 feet now,
70 feet.
70 feet. Proposed fence to setback from bluff is 70 feet from the bluff crest.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I believe then that the variance would be reduced to 30 feet if that were the case.
Right, I would think so.
And that's the only variance that's being required. The other question I had was related to when we were at the meeting, there was a question of the scenic easement and indication by the applicant's agent that that would be acceptable to be at 30 feet. The letter, however, does not reference scenic easement. The letter references proposed buffer, and it goes 50 feet. So it appears to me, just taking this literally,
Sure.
that the applicant is offering up 50 feet of buffer, but is not offering up easement associated with that.
Yeah, I think that's what I recall at the hearing, I believe. Is that,
Well,
they were not interested in giving you a whole scenic, giving us a scenic easement, or am I mistaken? Michael, do you recall?
I jotted that it was agreed to at the hearing.
At
I just
50 at 50
rewatched it.
Oh, you said, oh, thank you, I'm sorry.
But
That a 50-foot scenic
it's not
easement?
a 50, a
Oh,
30.
30, gotcha.
So he's increased it to 50.
He's increased it to 50, but as a buffer.
But as a buffer.
Unclear if it is also intended to be a scenic easement. I'm just
Gotcha.
bringing it
Yeah, I
out. It's a
completely
little
get it.
confusing.
I get it, yeah.
As a scenic easement.
I'm sorry?
I thought he did agree.
He did
Scenic
at
easement.
30.
Yeah,
But
that's
if
what
he's
Tim-
increased it to a 50, we have to make a decision of whether or not we leave it as a buffer.
Well, it could be, a
I feel that 50 feet is.
You may want to discuss, if you believe we agree to the 30-foot easement, you may want to do the 30-foot easement, but then also agree to the 50-foot.
that's what I was going to suggest, that as a condition, we approve the 50-foot buffer, but condition the agreed upon 30-foot easement line be put on the survey.
I think that would be the fairest because both of those things were definitively
Okay.
And you
discussed.
rewatched it today as well. Thank you for doing that, Tim.
Yeah, Michael, I think at the hearing, you showed us the property next door that had a 50-foot easement.
It had a 50-foot easement that was part of a 19, speaking,
I thought when that was pointed out there.
that was part of a 1988 determination allowing the development of the house that had eroded 30 feet. I believe. That's also-
Yeah, I just thought at the hearing that the applicant then said he agreed to that. That's, it's an easement that I wrote down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tim rewatched it this
I
afternoon
watched
and
it.
took notes, so
Mr. Anderson did agree to the
the
30-foot.
30-foot and the 50-foot.
It's just that when they put it in writing to us, they put a 50-foot buffer. So
So we'll give him both of what he agreed to. I will get it.
I don't think that a bad decision. So
Yeah.
I would conclude by saying that given what was presented to us, what we talked about during the public hearing, and the response that we received dated June 22nd, that I feel like this is a significantly better application than what was originally presented to us.
Yep.
I think it's still a substantial improvement. It's still in an NRSP. However, based on the contour lines of the property, especially at the back of the property, which is near the road, they've kind of positioned this house and septic where they need to be able to position it. They've pulled everything else back to get it largely within jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And so I would be looking to approve it with the various factors that I mentioned.
Well, Tim, thank you for that very thorough analysis as usual. Ed, you want to take it?
I don't have an awful lot to add. I agree with the analysis by Board Member Brenneman. I think that the letter of June 22nd, 2021 was significant in that it did address
just about everything that we brought up at that meeting. I know I had asked a question because of the seriousness of the slope on the property, what could be done about drainage, with anything we could do to offset rain and stormwater. And then they addressed that in item 6, saying that they were going to do an adequate analysis and then put in enough drainage to offset. It seems as if that was an answer. I know we had concerns about the fence. Tucking it to the contour was something that was sticking around in a conversation at the end of that night. I think that was something that they addressed adequately. And I think the big one is to go back to the bluff edge and to have them offer up 50 feet of a buffer, and then us conditioning, going back to the 30-foot easement and conditioning that with our approval. I think that, as was pointed out by Member Brenneman, that by and large, the actions that were raised, positions of the deck, the patio, were all an improvement on the original application. And I'm in agreement that I would be looking to approve this application.
Thank you, Ed. Jerry?
I don't have much more to add. I agree with everything that you said. Went through the documentation they sent in, and they did address everything. I'd just like to confirm the setback for the fencing. Can you tell that, Michael, from the,
We have it on the we have it on the plan.
so this is the
It's
contour
also on
line
the site
here,
plan.
right? And how did you get set?
It follows a contour.
Yeah,
Um,
so this is the closest to the bluff crest right here, right?
Yes, exactly. That would be, then it curves back. Yes, exactly. And that contour line is there and that. Oh, I'm sorry, he's getting.
And I just want to make sure.
Sure.
that-
See, yeah, that it has,
Okay, hey, can I see that sheet again? So that, the north one you gave it?
Is it that one?
it's, yeah,
Have it in
he's measuring it from here to the bluff. Can you tell if that's,
So here, the reason I have is there, it's on the updated one, it says, that there's a line here, Terry. The closest point says proposed, says 70 feet proposed fence from setback from bluff.
Oh, okay.
So this would all be referenced, all these.
This is on the Z1.
This is on the Z1, exactly, the 6.4, thank you.
Okay.
is there another
Yeah,
spot?
no, I was
that's closer?
also pleased that they took everything into account that we had.
For that little cutout of that
Concerned
house.
about.
Because they're doing it from here. He did it from here to here, got 70.
I think this is a big improvement from what's existing. I agree with other board members. I don't have much to add.
Thank you. I too agree with all the good analysis Tim had provided, and I think at the end of the day, I just appreciate how the applicants, how well thought out this was, and how they just worked with this board and the planning department on this. So I too want to approve this application. Okay, council?
Yeah, well, I'm
Good.
just wanting, if we give them the 30, there is one jog out on here. If you decide on the 30, they may not have enough of variance for that fence. Because there is, that's the top of the bluff here.
Right.
This space to here is a little
It's
bit
70.
shorter.
No, it's 70.
No, 70 is from here
Yeah, to the
to
fence.
here.
Yep.
This is arguably a little bit shorter from here to here. Just letting you know. I just
Okay.
want to make sure that you
Right,
give
I
them
see.
enough of a variance so that,
Right, gotcha, right.
It was originally noticed for 55.
It was 55.
Oh, it's noticed for 55.
Originally noticed
55,
for
but no,
55.
Right.
Now it's 70, so we got
Yeah.
a buffer in there.
Yeah, I think there's enough
Okay.
room in there.
Right,
but I
Is that what-
usually write the determination by what it is. I don't go and give them the 55.
Right.
right.
So it would be,
I think we would leave the existing fence as located on the survey
So you
dated
want to
and,
give them 34 foot?
well, I just want to make sure that 10 years down the road, when someone comes and does the measurement, says you don't have enough of a variance, we aren't in a problem.
yeah.
So it's going to
I
be
think I would
consistent
write
with this,
Specific reference to the document.
to the document, and we'll do it from there.
As drawn.
Okay.
As drawn, exactly.
So a reference or a variance of approximately 30 And then, because that'll be, I mean, it's.
Exactly. And
Wait,
for the-
we have
for
to
the
write.
Right, and also the fence is located on a certain topo line.
Right, no, I
Yeah, so-
understand that, it's just that
No,
when
and
you
I
grant a
understand what you're
variance,
saying.
it's
Sure.
for an amount, and so I
Right.
want to make sure that we get it
And
close enough,
if you
so
said
I
it
will
as
do.
approximately 70 feet as noted on.
And I'll footnote it, I'll say approximately 70 and footnote it to the
Exactly.
site plan.
That'd be
Okay, I
great,
just want
yeah.
to make sure that we do it in a way that
Yeah.
it doesn't contradict what your intent
To
is.
that, to that
Would it
point
be-
of the contour line. you
Yeah.
said.
Would it be inappropriate to reach out to the applicant's agent to confirm that so that it's written consistently with?
I don't know if that's necessary, really. mean,
Yeah, I think I think I can use language that will
I know
cover it,
she's-
so
yeah.
my concern is not that they know, but it's something that the building department or other planners who might come and be evaluating the C of O are able to comfortably say, this is consistent with what was
Yeah.
approved.
Yeah, right.
Since Mike's not going to be here to do it.
Right, instead of making them go back, but I understand Tim's point, but it just, if the text, the language did say approximately 70 feet, and maybe in the footnote, you note that there's a jog offline.
Yep, yep.
Or something like that, that's.
Certainly, yep.
Thank you for picking all that up. Okay, we'll move on. Okay, next we have Barbara Rosecan at 313 Kings.
No, I think you have 92 South.
Oh, I think I skipped. Okay. Apologies. 92 South Euclid Avenue LLC at 92 South Euclid Avenue, Montauk Tax Map number 300-49-1-15. This was, let me pull that file out. This is Terry.
Yes.
Terry.
Yes, Karen.
Yeah. Terry, this will lead us off. Thank you.
Okay, I believe this hearing was also April 19th. Oh, held on April 6th. So it's April 6th. And if you recall, this is a Montauk on Newport Avenue, South Newport Avenue, which is one block north of Main Street, between 7 and Montauk. And this was an unimproved lot of 4,100 square feet. And the applicant is looking to build a business, a retail structure, and with second floor affordable housing apartment. And there's a lot of discussion that what they were asking for was a 7-foot variance on the eastern property line of this property, and a variance to allow 3 parking spaces in the town right of way, where on-site parking is required. And so the discussion went relatively smoothly for a while. There was a lot of talk about the variance, and prior to it actually getting down hearing, there were a number of correspondences between the planning board and the building inspector just to confirm that the variances were in fact needed because of certain conditions in the sense of this is what a factor into that. And the final determination was that the variance is required. So that's what they applied for. We had a lot of discussion. An issue came up with the parking spaces to go into the right of way. There was a tree in that location that would have to come down if the application to approve the parking. We're concerned about that. There were a series of trees put up in Montauk by the Village Association there many, many years ago, and this was one of them. We were reluctant to see an actual tree to be taken down. So there was a lot of discussion about that back and forth on it. And like I said, the other part of the discussion was the variance. The property to the east has an approved project that's still as yet unimproved with an approved determination. And that met all the setbacks that were required for that project. So we were reluctant and concerned about giving a 7-foot variance for this property. It's a very small, narrow, long piece of property. and they wanted to fit, 2 retail spaces potentially in this location. So they did ask for more time after the hearing to redo the project, and we did get subsequent submissions from the applicant. We received the document on June 8th, 2021, that's dated June 3rd, 2021, from the applicant's agent, Andrew Strong. And they amended the site plan. They did take into account some suggestions to make the building structure itself narrower and longer so that they could improve on that variance request for the setback. They did do that, and they came up with a new plan dated 10/9/2020. Oh, no, I'm sorry, revised 4/26/2021.
420, the 426 or 420? The
Well,
survey?
what I'm looking at here, this is one of the documents that submitted, is the site plan, site lighting plan, foundation plan,
Okay,
and then floor plans.
all right. And
They have
the
different-
survey
they have
is
different
April
dates on that.
29th,
Yeah.
2021, right?
Survey.
Okay,
April 29th.
all right, good. And then the other ones are, yep,
In
okay.
addition to that, they did say that there was no way that they could not remove the tree and still provide the parking in a proper manner for the planning plan period. They did submit documentation from Hampton Yards, the president, Aaron Chase, with a description about the tree. He identified the tree that we had discussed as being a non-native invasive type plant, which had, well, as far, it is a non-native tree. I did confirm that, the Zelkova tree. It is from Japan. However, they are a type of tree that are still used in other places for street type trees. I disagree that it's invasive, but I did look up in the New York State DEC afterwards, if we got the submission, and that plant is not, can still be used in New York State, but I did take into account, the description by the Hampton Yards person, and I think they did a lot of research to try to save the tree as much as possible. So the bottom line on all of this for me is that I am now looking, I think the setback at 3 feet is much improved. And the 30% setback from the east. And they did offer, after a lot of discussion in the document that was sent in about how the tree is invasive, and at the end on page 11, they offered that the owner is willing to plant a new tree in front of the building, one that's native and not invasive. So that portion is good. They are going to put another tree in. You do see it noted on the survey. However, I do have a comment about the selection that they picked on that plan, which maybe the planning department can work with the applicant on. They selected in the planting plan.
Yep. East End land planning here.
East End land planting.
Yeah, it's an acer, you want the
And
name
they
of that?
say
tree?
it's an Acer
Acers, pseudoplatanus,
pseudoplatanus,
sycamore, sycamore
a
maple,
sycamore maple.
8 to 10 feet in height.
And in the document, it says that is a native, they will replace using native plant and not invasive. That tree is also not native. However, these types of trees, I guess in a lot of cases, aren't typically not native. But I think that tree needs to be, they need to make a different selection on the tree that they will be putting there. And it is invasive. As a matter of fact, I have a printout from the New York State DEC site where that's listed as a prohibited plant. First one on the list.
Well, good for you.
But
Good for you
anyway,
picking up on that.
so I think they need to work on a better selection for that.
Michael, you can't go to Texas unless we get a better tree out here. That's sycamore. Maybe.
Perhaps a silver maple, which is also not native, but not invasive.
Mhm.
Acer saccharidum, no. Saccharidum. But anyway, I'm looking to now approve this project based on the fact,
Mhm.
but primarily that they changed the setback to an acceptable level. And did make the size of the apartment and they just tightened it up a little bit. I think they came down from 1,200 feet, on the apartment to about 1,036. And it is affordable. That was another thing I was concerned about, the affordable housing issue. But apparently, I spoke to council and I also spoke to Rick Jantz, the planner, and apparently these things, they're required to make the apartments over these retail shops affordable.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
conform
it's
to
great,
it.
which is great. Yeah.
So,
Well, Terry, thank you for that thorough analysis. Ed, being a Montauk, you want to take it pass on this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I don't have an awful lot to add. Terry did a nice job of summarizing what was going on here. I think that I have great concern about the tree. The tree became an issue that perhaps we talked much too much about, but nonetheless, it seemed to be part of a pattern that we had seen of previous approval for a building next to it, taking out one of the many, there were 7 originally in a run there, put in by the Montauk Association. That came out, left a gaping hole, and now we're going to take another one out and leave a gaping hole. I think on behalf of their proposal, they had the approval of the Highway Department and the Planning Department, and moving forward with removal of the tree in order to create parking being an issue in that part of town. I'm not crazy about the idea that the tree goes. I do agree that it's non-native. However, both East Hampton Town and Montauk are planted them along in many places, and they provide a very sort of bucolic feeling to places that can be normally sun-drenched. That turns out to be a bit of an aside. It was an aside when I started, and it's an aside now. It's something that's of interest and concern that keep our eyes open in the future. I do think they addressed it. They answered it to the best extent they could and why it was necessary. And they offered up another tree. The species of that can be discussed by the planning department. And I see that it goes in that northeast corner, adjacent to the easterly property line. And I guess that tree will go in and be approved by the planner. More importantly, though, as was pointed out by Terry, is the setback. That 7-foot setback that they were, the 7-foot variance they were asking for was had to be approved upon. And I think they did make an effort to come back and improve upon that. I had similar concerns about the second floor apartment, maintaining that it was going to be a low-income housing versus affordable housing, not low-income, affordable housing, and that subsequently various conversations made me feel that that will be maintained. So following much of the same logic that Member Berger used, I'm now willing to approve this project that is now presented to the board.
Thank you, Ed. Tim?
I would simply thank my fellow members for their thorough analysis and say I concur.
Great. Right?
I do too. I have nothing else to add.
I completely agree. And thank you for that, Terry and Council. I'll just read off to you just what we're looking at as far as dates and what they are in the most current would be the package that would precede the package from the attorney Andrew Strong.
On June 3rd.
It was received on June 8th.
June 8th,
Dated June 3rd. And that includes his correspondence. It includes the East End land planning, the planting plans. And that is dated 5/25/2021.
Okay, I have a June 3rd stamp on mine. Are you sure it's not June 3rd?
It probably is a third. That could easily be a
The
third.
survey is stamped June 3rd, the letter from, oh, maybe it's,
Maybe it is a
that
third.
might
He
be a
probably hand
smudge of
delivered it.
3. It might be a
Yeah.
smudge.
Three. I think it's a 3
Yeah.
on mine.
He probably hand delivered it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have all these dates, right, Council?
Yep, I have all of
And
those.
the
Yep,
site
I have I have a full set of that.
Good, excellent, excellent.
Yeah, and the document from Hampton Yards. I
Yep.
think it's at that also.
Yep.
It's also. part
Okay,
of it.
Terry, would you like to make a motion then, please?
Oh,
No, we don't.
So you don't need a
Oh,
motion.
listen.
Well, let me write it first, please.
Yeah, exactly. Let it write it first. Okay, excellent. Okay, now,
Yeah, can I say something?
Of course.
As far as these trees and
Yeah.
my fault.
yeah,
really wish that the planning board would change their strategies on. They've been doing this for 30 years.
I think you better show up at one of their meetings. I think,
Down, I think so too.
I think, yeah,
Okay,
Right.
that's an option.
that's an option, right? Exactly. As a citizen, as a.
At least we got the pink sidewalk.
Yeah, we got the pink sidewalk.
Yeah, but I hope that red, the
Okay,
store
then.
next door, the red is too good.
Next, we're getting into A or B territory. We're gonna move along here.
Yeah.
Okay, next we have Barbara Rose Cannon, 313 Kings Point Road in Springs, tax map number 324-1-8. And this is in Board Vice Chair Jolene's district, right?
Yes, this application is, we're located on Kings Point Highway in Springs, which faces Gardner's Bay. The owner of the housekeeper came under ownership in 1996. There were some administrative approvals in 1992, and there's some additions done in 1996. And then from there on, it was there was an expedited administrative natural resources permit for bluff restoration in 2016, which was a result of Hurricane Sandy. This area does get a lot of abuse from storms head on, pretty much. You know that area. This lot, looking up Lionshead Rock, beautiful bluff.
Yeah.
And area. So, and then recently, last year, I think it was under attack by another storm after recently just went through another restoration. So at the point of the 2016 expedited administrative permit, there was a 10-foot buffer that was a part of that administration, which was installed. The applicant is before us for basically 3 areas. There is a fence on the crest of the bluff. It's actually, from when we looked at it, it's more of a cage than it was a fence, protecting some plant life. Then there is a deck on the water side of the house that was expanded. It was expanded 2.5 foot closer to the deck. And then there was an expansion of some slate patios on the landward side of the house. I'm not that concerned with the landward side of the house, the expansion, because those decks were over disturbed areas, and I think I was okay with that. Regarding the fence on the top of the bluff, the applicant has agreed to remove that fence and restore. I'll come back to that. Remove the fence. As far as the deck, the 2.5 foot deck, the applicant has offered to do another additional 15 foot buffer to add it to the 10-foot buffer, and making it 25 feet, which I feel is adequate and proper mitigation for the extension of the deck. So therefore, I would be looking to approve this application with the mitigation.
Well, I have one, let me go next.
Go ahead, Terry.
Because,
Go ahead.
We got the submission on June 7th. I don't know if you saw it, Roy.
Yep.
They want to keep their cage now.
No.
No,
I'm not approving the case.
I
wouldn't approve it.
No, I agree with everything.
No, I think, I mean, the buffers are not made to be protected from wildlife and deer and stuff like that. It's supposed to be indigenous plantings, so I'm not good with having.
That's a slippery
Yes,
slope,
absolutely.
no pun intended.
So,
Just so I'm clear, in the original one here, there's,
The variance was for
There's-
the cage, one of them.
one of them is for the cage, but it's to relocate 22 feet of linear feet of pool fencing. That is still,
Wait,
No.
No, what are you looking?
Yeah, that is still
Oh,
on here.
22 feet of, Michael, just read.
Yes.
So there's still that. So there's still the pool fencing,
Right.
They applied for this fencing and then the relocation of that fencing.
relocating that fencing. And then you have first and second floor
And
decking.
that's
which
back
I talked
75,
about.
and that fence is back
That was hardly-
75.
I believe that fencing meets the setbacks and variances are required for that particular fencing. It's just the fencing basically on this side of it. So it's
Are
effective.
you saying the cage doesn't
So
need the
the
variance?
proposed-
No.
No, no.
The proposed pool fence is just an NRSP.
Yeah,
Cage is the 75 foot variance.
Correct.
Okay.
yeah, the cage is up on the.
Correct.
75 feet. Yeah.
So again, we're just talking about the
100%.
pool fence we're approving is that small section on the side of the house.
Right. I just want to make sure that
Sure.
because they
Sure.
mentioned it. So that is okay. The wire fencing on the bluff
Is not okay.
is not okay. And the decking is first and second story decking, correct? Okay. I just want to make sure I had all of those.
All right,
There you go. Thank you.
Terry, anything else?
No, I agree
Yeah.
completely. I
Okay.
approve the others, but the wire cage
Mhm.
denied.
Tim?
I agree as well, and I just want to be clear that it's subject to the offer of
The
the
15-foot addition.
the additional 15 feet.
Right.
And I like the way it was framed because it would mean 25 feet in total.
Total.
I think we should
Exactly.
spell it all out.
Exactly.
And I also am looking to deny the cage, which is a fence by another name.
Right.
But I don't believe that we need that at the top of the bluff.
Thank you, Tim. Ed?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with my fellow board members. I visited the site, as several other board members I know did, and the cage is an obvious construction right there at the bluff. It seemed initially, and from our first conversations, that was very important to all of us as a condition for approval. At the meeting, I recall it being said that that was not going to be a problem. However, the letter that subsequently was received, they withdrew the permission and they looked for some support. I think Jim Grimes stepped forward and said it was actually going to help maintain that bluff a little bit to see that the vegetation be maintained. That's not in line with the thinking of the board.
It looks like a bad precedent.
And as we sit and look at these things, I think that it was a larger ask than maybe what we're saying here. There was a very small amount of deck on the water side to consider, but there was also the ask on the landward side. And so they were asking for things here that we had to be sure that we were comfortable for the environmental approvals. And I think, as pointed out by Member Brenneman, that with the condition that 15 feet is offered the data to the 10, and that the cage has to go. And since it's not been offered to go, I'd be looking to agree with my fellow board members and at this time deny this application.
Deny that portion.
That portion of the
Yeah,
application. Thank you.
right. Sure. So thank you, board members. I completely agree with all of that, and especially Tim's clarifications at the end, just to wrap it up, and it's,
Is it on
Why
here
would you-
where is the current
no
buffer?
motion needed.
Current bluff crest?
No, buffer. There's a 10-foot
not.
buffer. It's not, the
So-
10-foot buffer's not on here.
It's not depicted on the survey.
Okay, that's what I'm just double checking.
So council, we all good on that? All set?
Yeah, and your notes clearly indicate that it's an additional,
Additional
15?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we would ask that you make that very clear in the
Well,
determination.
I have no problem making it clear in the
Right.
determination. I want to make sure that that was what they
Right.
agreed upon.
Right.
That's what I need to make clear.
Exactly.
What do we do?
That's a condition now. Okay, all right.
Okay, next we'll move on to other decisions, item D, 4D it is actually. Herman at 26 Seaside Avenue, Montauk, tax map number 300-32-7-6. And I'll refer to board member Berger on this, Terry, if you please.
Yeah, this is a modification request that has come in from this applicant, and unfortunately, I don't have the printout of the email that Michael had sent me. Michael, can you
What date was that?
walk us through that?
Yeah, Michael, if you would, that'd be
Yeah,
great.
Michael has it.
If you could pull that up.
And this is an unimproved lot that we could approve.
So this is Herman. This is 26 Seaside Avenue. I believe Terry, Roy, John, you were all on the board at the time. The original approval was dated in 2017. It was a vacant lot in Seaside that was going to be initially developed, including a bridge, an easement on the east and west side of the residence that needed variances from wetland setbacks, and the clearing on the property. Just give me a quick sec to run through everything. So the board originally approved the survey. They did not approve, interesting situation. They actually didn't approve a set of building plans. Specifically, there were building plans listed. It included the bridge plan and a few other things. So there actually weren't building plans listed as part of this one. So I'm going to pull up this is the survey associated with the modification. And I'm also going to pull up the survey associated with the board's original approval, just to refresh. So there are ones on the front side of it, on the east side of the property, or the north side of the property, rather. Over here, there's also wetlands to the rear, substantial easement to the rear, and easement on the north side as well. This is what was originally approved back in 17. What the situation arose that the garage for the residence goes underneath the existing residence, and what they're asking for now is a modification to allow the construction of this dumbwaiter here. It's about 30 inches by 30 inches, and a small expansion of this proposed areaway. It's relatively minor with all other respects. It's identical to what the board originally approved back in 2017.
Thank you, Michael.
So I thought. We'll make a motion
Yeah,
to
please
have
do.
a rehearing.
I agree. Tim, Ed?
Yes, I would agree.
Everyone agrees?
Everyone does. Thank you.
Okay, and I make a motion for Herman, 26 Seaside Avenue in Montauk. Suffolk County Tax Map 300-032-07-06. Make a motion to have a rehearing in this application.
Second.
Concur? I concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Terry.
Michael.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, I think we have next on minutes. Let's see. No,
Nope, we have 2 more extensions
We
of
got a few more to
time.
go here. Yep. Okay, next we'll go on to extensions of time. We have Woolcott at 42 Oyster Shores Road in East Hampton, tax map number 300-92-6-23.3. And that's in board member Brenneman's district. Kyle, do you have those copies or?
No, they're not. Was presented to you before when they also came in for the application. And there was a concern on it because that platform was still on there. Eleni and I worked on it with the applicant, Ms. Wolcott, on making it clear that
Oh, that's right. Exactly. Yeah, sure.
the wooden chaise,
Yeah, the platform.
wooden chaise, whatever it was, needed to actually be removed, that it needed a building permit, it hadn't been approved. So that has finally been clarified with the applicant, so that just moving it is not acceptable. It has, and Eleni was out there today and verified that it has been removed from the property. So I think that was the only remaining issue on this extension of time.
Well, they sent us photos, but I'm glad you went out there.
She actually went out there today.
She
Yep.
did. She did go out. Yeah.
I can clarify that it's not there.
Yeah.
It's not there.
It's not there.
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
this one would be
Yes.
ready then for
The
a
extension.
drafting an extension of
Great.
time.
Okay, great.
As I recall, this was really something of an administrative
Issue.
issue.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just that we were trying to deal with getting the property
Making sure.
cleaned up before we
Before you.
move forward.
So you don't need to make a motion on this. You can just wait until you want to adopt the
Great.
same with the next one.
Thank you, council. Thank you, Nancy. Next, we have Gregory Cass at 1 Marlin Drive.
Nope.
No.
We still have De Niro on
Oh.
an extension of time. This was presented a while ago. It was kind of included in when we were doing the modification because it needed extension. And for some reason it didn't get done. If it's okay with the board, we'll have to prepare this one for a adoption as well.
Yeah, we
Yes.
have a memo from Brian Frank dated July 30th that kind of laid around for a while, but he does feel it's appropriate since our reviewing for the extension.
Right.
So I make a motion.
Nope, you don't need to make a motion until we're gonna adopt it.
John
Okay,
keeps saying make a
I know, I
motion.
keep trying. Thank you.
Now go to
Yes,
minutes.
Lynn. Now we'll go to the minutes. We have the draft minutes, we tabled from last week of June 22nd to July 13th, July 20th, and now July 27th. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I will make a motion to approve the draft minutes of the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals for June 22nd, July 13th, July 20th, and July 22nd.
Second?
Concur.
I'll concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Terry. Next we'll move on. I jumped ahead because I saw Woolcott again down here. So next we'll go to resolutions. And we have Robert Woolcott.
Okay, let me give you them here.
Thank you, Council. I'll just start reading in. 42 Oyster Shores Road, East Hampton, tax map number 300-92-6-23.3. And again, this is a board member, Tim Brenneman's district. Tim?
Sure. So the board will recall that this was an application to both for NRSP and two variances. The variances were substantial. One related to the location of a generator, and the other one was related to approval of a shower. The board was unanimous in denying the NRSP and two variances. And so I would make a motion in the matter of Robert Woolcott at Suffolk County Tax Map 300-92-6-23.3 to accept the determination as written.
Concur.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Tim. Okay, next we have Gregory Cass at 1 Marlin Drive in Amagansett, tax map number 300 thank you. Sure, great.
I'll distribute these.
Thank you, please do.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Gregory Cass at 1 Marlin Drive, Amagansett, tax map number 300-131-2-1.3. And this is in my Amagansett district, this project. And the purpose of the application was to remove the existing 717 square foot deck and replace it with a 1,203 square foot deck within side yard setbacks and to construct an outdoor shower on a parcel of land containing dune land and beach vegetation. And all board members approved of this application. So I will make a motion in the matter of Gregory Cass at 1 Marlin Drive in Amagansett to approve the determination as written.
Second.
Concur.
I concur.
Concur.
Thank you. Okay, next we will move on. We have the following 4 are extensions of time. And we have first 57 Waters Edge Road, LLC, 57 Waters Edge Springs, tax map number 300-83-7 in Roy's district. Roy, if you would, please.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the extension of time for 57 Waters Edge, LLC, Suffolk tax map number 300-83-7-15.1.
I'll second. I concur.
And I can,
Me too. I concur.
and I can, yep, and I concur as well. Thank you. Okay, next we have Prince at 152 Waterhole Road, again in Roy's district. Roy, if you would, please.
Yes, I'm making a motion to approve the extension of time for Robert and Olga Prince at 152 Waterhole Springs, Suffolk tax map number 300-23-3-10.
Second.
I concur. I concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Roy. And next we have Stein and Cholakian at 15 Treasure Island Drive in Amagansett in my district. This is tax map number 300-48-8-22.1. And I make a motion to approve the resolution extending determination for Stein and Arpine Cholakian at 15 Treasure Island Drive in Amagansett.
I'll second.
I concur.
I concur.
Thank you. Next, we have Seabass Acquisitions, and this again is in Amagansett. This is at 63 Shipwreck Drive in Amagansett. Tax map number 300-152-2-8.3 and 8.34. And we all concurred on this, and I make a motion to approve the extension of time for Seabass Acquisitions LLC at 63 Shipwreck Drive in Amagansett. Second.
I'll concur.
And I concur.
Okay, thank you all. Let's see, council, anything else on your end?
Nope, that's all I have.
Okay, I think we just need a member from our vice chair, a motion from our vice chair, and we're all set.
And I just may want to make a motion to keep our name placards in this room, never to leave it.
They were removed so that they were removed so that they can be made consistent. So we are ordering a new one for Ed, and our purchasing people wanted to see whether or not that they could find one that would be consistent with the others. And since there is a little bit of variation,
And we spent a lot of
they looked at
energy.
all of them, yes. And it did cause a little bit of
I Make a
calamity.
motion to close the public hearing for the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals for Tuesday, August 3rd at 5 p.m.
I'll second that.
I concur.
I concur.
And I concur. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, everybody. That's the event. Mike, thank you.